1,000 members of the Allied Malay, Indian, British and Australian forces joined the Malayan campaign in World War II. They fought but failed to fend off a relentless enemy advance that led to the fall of Singapore in February 1942 and the capture of tens of thousands of their own. Within months, the brutal and destructive enemy occupation of Sabah began, and Australian and British prisoners of war were shipped to Sandakan. For 3 years, they laboured at gunpoint to build a military airstrip that would in the end be abandoned. They were beaten violently and repeatedly. They were fed scarcely and poorly. Over time, they became severely malnourished and often dangerously ill. Survival at any point defied the odds. When at last nothing had been achieved by the perpetrators, their airfield rendered inoperable by Allied attack, conceit and rage fueled retribution, opening another chapter of devastating torment for those who had, until then, eluded death or slaughter. Some were left behind. They all perished slowly or despicably at others' hands. The rest were hauled from near collapse and coerced by rifle butt along a gruelling mountainous track on the false promise of respite and food. The death marches. For 260 kilometres they staggered and reeled, many without boots, all without tolerable ration. Those who could navigate the nightmare no longer were murdered or discarded along the way. For a long time, these atrocities were recorded only as bare facts. However, with the commitment and will of those who have remained close to the human tragedy that took place here, the details have over decades been drawn to the light. In 1942 and 1943, over 2,700 Allied servicemen were transported to Sandakan. In those first years, almost all the officers, some 300 of them, were removed to Kuching. We are deeply honoured to have with us today two of those men, Mr. Russ Ewan and Mr. Leslie Bunny Glover, and members of their families.
After the fall of Singapore in February 42, I was sent from Changi to North Borneo in B Force, a force of 1,000 men sent to build an aerodrome here. We went on the Ubi Miru. It was a shocking hellship. Anyhow, I won't describe that as... We berthed at Sandakan on the 18th of July, then marched out to our new home at the 8 Mile Peg, Sandakan POW camp. We were put into ADAP huts, 12 or more to a cubicle. It was a cramped situation, but heaven compared to the hellship we came in. We were soon put to work building roads, chopping down a large tree, but everywhere was in the way of the road, filled in a swamp, cut down a hill. The only level area for the airstrip was the swamp, so we had to fill it in. Anyhow, to make us work harder, we were regularly beaten with lawyer canes and heavy sticks. I mentioned here last time I had my neck broken by a pick handle because I wasn't working fast enough, which was true.
This year I've attended 4 Sandakan services. As in other years, on all those occasions, the heart and the mind become filled with such a mixed bag of emotions that it is hard to say what is uppermost in your mind. Ultimately, it settles down, and all that is left is an overwhelming feeling of sadness at the futility of it all. Today we're here not only to honour, I feel, not only to honour those who died, and I'm not going to go through the story of Sandakan, which you know so well, The tragic events will never be forgotten by so many people, but they are not known by enough people. But today we think of the sufferings and the enormous loss of life of the Australian and the British and the Indian forces. Their lives were slowly whittled away by the treatment that they had at the hands of their captors.